when the Pakistan Army sent its heavily armed soldiers across the line of control. Our brave hearts climbed heights of over 10,000 feet in biting cold and icy winds, lungs gasping for air. They faced steel splinters from enemy artillery and engaged the enemy in ferocious hand-to-hand combat. The Indian Armed Forces prevailed over all odds and delivered victory on the 26th of July that year. On 26 July 2024, it will be 25 years since the Kargil War, when 527 of our brave hearts laid down their lives. It's a story of how the Indian Army engaged with the enemy, fought them, and threw the last intruder out. With Kargil Vijay Divas just days away, join us in saluting the courage of the Kargil veterans and the heroes who made the ultimate sacrifice for the motherland. Today, News9 Kargil Honours will felicitate those who ensured victory for India at the Kargil heights. The exceptional individuals, their families, and the support provided by the defence industry that enables our armed forces to protect India's borders day and night and in the most challenging terrain. News9 is honoured to recognize the contribution and sacrifice of the men and women in uniform with the Kargil Honours. All right, may I now invite on stage the Managing Director and CEO of TV9 Network, Mr. Barun Das, to deliver the opening address on the occasion.
Thank you, Neha. Our Chief Guest, General Anil Chauhan, CDS, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, a very good afternoon and a warm welcome. Either I will come back after hoisting the tricolour, or I'll come back wrapped in it, but I'll be back for sure. These famous words symbolize a sense of confidence and security as India now celebrates the 25th year of Kargil War victory. It was Captain Vikram Batra who uttered these words to his friends at the onset of the war. Captain Batra was one of the 527 national heroes whose ultimate sacrifice made the Kargil War victory possible. A peacenik and a statesman at heart, the then Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee valued peace above war. He ventured on the historic Lahore Bus Yatra to script the Lahore Declaration, de-escalating tension post the subcontinent going nuclear, and how Pakistan responded. The Pakistan Army unleashed its evil shadow to destroy Atalji's Lahore Accord. The PM didn't budge and launched Operation Vijay. The Kargil War, to my mind, has reminded us of many important lessons. First and foremost, that India will never ever be the aggressor. It will always preach peace in letter and spirit. As our former poet, Prime Minister Atalji famously said, we want peace, but it cannot be one-sided. And thus the second lesson, that India shall never lower the guard for the...
This and more. Streaming on News9 Plus. News is now content. Subscribe and get free vouchers.
No, it's the belief that brought me here. When I was very young, I thought कि करूँगा, करना पड़ेगा.
The working situation here is a bit tough.
In such challenging circumstances, 3 stars twinkle the brightest here.
नेशन के हिसाब से बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट प्रोजेक्ट्स है जो हम लोग काम कर रहे हैं. उनको भरोसा है कि हम लोग कर लेंगे.
They are the women officers of the highest border roads task force in the world.
This and more. Streaming on News.
उत्कलवङ्गा विन्ध्य हिमाचल यमुना गङ्गा उच्चल जलधितरङ्गा तव शुभ नामे जागे तव शुभ आशीष मागे गाहे तव जय गाथा जन गण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे.
కార్గిల్ వీరులకు న్యూస్9 సన్మాన కార్యక్రమాన్ని ఢిల్లీ నుంచి ప్రత్యక్ష ప్రసారంలో చూస్తున్నారు. కార్గిల్లో అసమాన ధైర్య సాహసాలు ప్రదర్శించిన సైనికులు వారి కుటుంబాలను సత్కరించేందుకు న్యూస్9 ఈ కార్యక్రమాన్ని ఏర్పాటు చేసింది. ఢిల్లీలోని మెరిడియన్ హోటల్లో నిర్వహిస్తున్న ఈ కార్యక్రమానికి సైనిక దళాల అధిపతి అనిల్ చౌహాన్ ముఖ్య అతిథిగా హాజరయ్యారు.
TV9 Marathi, the ultimate leader of Maharashtra. TV9 Gujarat, the TV9 Telugu, the forever Telugu superstar. TV9 Marathi, the ultimate leader of Maharashtra. TV9 Gujarat, the TV9 Telugu, the forever Telugu superstar. TV9 Marathi, the ultimate leader of Maharashtra. TV9 Gujarat, the TV9 Telugu, the forever Telugu superstar. TV9 Marathi, the ultimate leader of Maharashtra. TV9 Gujarat, the
General Anil Chauhan, CDS, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, a very good afternoon and a warm welcome. Either I will come back after hoisting the tricolor, or I'll come back wrapped in it, but I'll be back for sure. These famous words symbolize a sense of confidence and security as India now celebrates the 25th year of Kargil war victory. It was Captain Vikram Batra who uttered these words to his friends at the onset of the war. Captain Batra was one of the 527 national heroes whose ultimate sacrifice made the Kargil war victory possible. A peacenik and a statesman at heart, the then Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee valued peace above war. He ventured on the historic Lahore bus yatra to script the Lahore Declaration, de-escalating tension post the subcontinent going nuclear, and how Pakistan responded. The Pakistan army unleashed its evil shadow to destroy Atalji's Lahore Accord. The PM didn't budge and launched Operation Vijay. The Kargil war, to my mind, has reminded us of many important lessons. First and foremost, that India will never ever be the aggressor. It will always preach peace in letter and spirit.
This event is a commemoration of the 25th anniversary of the Kargil War. a tribute to the valor and dedication of the Indian Armed Forces in the 1999 war. Kargil War was thrust on India and fought between two nuclear-armed nations from the 3rd of May to the 26th of July 1999. The war was fought in one of the world's most treacherous terrains at an extremely high altitude and in sub-zero temperatures. It began when the Pakistan Army sent its heavily armed soldiers across the line of control. Our brave hearts climbed heights of over 10,000 feet in biting cold and icy winds, lungs gasping for air. They faced steel splinters from enemy artillery and engaged the enemy in ferocious hand-to-hand combat. The Indian Armed Forces prevailed over all odds and delivered victory on the 26th of July that year. On 26 July 2024, it will be 25 years since the Kargil War, when 527 of our brave hearts laid down their lives. It's a story of how the Indian Army engaged with the enemy, fought them, and threw the last intruder out. With Kargil Vijay Divas just days away, join us in saluting the courage of the Kargil veterans and the heroes who made the ultimate sacrifice for the motherland. Today, News9 Kargil Honours will felicitate those who ensured victory for India at the Kargil heights. The exceptional individuals,
artillery guns, rockets, logistics, equipment, etc. Over the course of subsequent years, as you are all aware, with successive reforms in 2002 and 2004, and of course the major reforms made by the Honorable Prime Minister Sri Modi in 2014, 2015 and 2016, the industry received a significant boost led by the whole Make in India and the whole Atmanirbhar initiative. Inspired by our armed forces, guided and hand-holded by our Defense Research and Development Organization, the DRDO, and with the determination and strength of our military capabilities, today we are at the forefront of designing, manufacturing world-class defense platforms, and we are today an exporter of artillery guns. General Chauhan, the war veterans, the military strategists will all agree with me that artillery was the linchpin in India's Kargil victory 25 years ago. Of course, today's artillery guns are very different. They are software-driven, they are autonomous, but the best thing is they are all made in India with 100% indigenous product. The strength of India's military capabilities has been a key barometer to measure the strength of its economies. Most developed countries around the world today have a strong defense manufacturing industry. Some years ago, I had shared a book with General Chauhan about how the US built its military capability during World War II. It was just amazing. Historically, the United States, Japan, Germany, Korea, and more recently China have all transformed their economies towards high growth trajectories by producing innovations and technologies and products. And most of these innovations were fundamentally designed for military applications. As India aspires to become a fully developed nation in the next 20 to 25 years, a Viksit Bharat, as the Honorable Prime Minister says, and get into the Amrit Kal, we expect our military capabilities will also grow exponentially, as a result of which our country will gain in global respect and standing and stature. Self-reliance or Atmanirbharta in strategic sectors like aerospace and defense shall be one of the critical levers of realizing the vision of a Shresth Bharat or a new India. Jai Hind and thank you.
Thank you very much, sir, for your address. I'd now like to once again invite on stage Mr. Barun Das, the MD and CEO of TV9 Network. And ladies and gentlemen, it is now time to welcome our chief guest. Please put your hands together for the Chief of Defence Staff, General Anil Chauhan. Welcome, sir. Yes, sure. Thank you so much, sir, for being here with us and gracing the occasion with your presence. We are truly honored to have you in our midst today. All right, now that memento has been presented to our chief guest, without any further ado, ladies and gentlemen, it is time for the much-awaited address by our chief guest, General Anil Chauhan. A big round of applause, please. All yours, sir.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's a matter of honor and great privilege for me to speak on the 25th anniversary, the Rajat Jayanti of the Kargil War. I see a lot of veterans who participated in the war amongst us. I see a lot of next of kin of all those who made the supreme sacrifice during the war, and still those who actually supported this national endeavor from outside. We recognize the invaluable contribution of each one of you. My salutations to all of you. We are indeed indebted to each and every one of you. Most of the officers and men who participated in the war have actually been honored by the government by distinguished and gallantry awards. Today's event is a recognition of their services and is being conferred by the citizens of India, I would say, the informed citizens. And that makes this particular event very, very special. My thanks to TV9 and their CEO, Mr. Barun Das, and others who are involved in organizing this event, including Dr. Maruf Raza. In fact, the creation of this post of CDS was one of the recommendations of the committee that reviewed the war. The appointment of CDS, in some manner, that way, is a progeny of the war. As a CDS, I feel both honored and humbled at the same time as I stand before you all. War, or for that matter, any war actually, is a very, very important politico-military event in the history of nation. It has the potential actually to change the destiny of a nation and its people forever. The people, its territories, and its ideology. Hence, I believe that it's for this reason that the story of all wars needs to be recalled time and again and retold multiple number of times. The memory of the sacrifices made by the soldiers must become part of our national folklore, as indeed it had become during the Kargil War. The saga, bravery and fortitude must continue to inspire future generations of the youth as well as soldiers who join the Indian Armed Forces. I am very glad that we are here to rekindle those memories before they fade away from the nation's minds and consciousness. I must thank the organizers for this thoughtful gesture and well-organized Bharat Gallantry Awards. Let me talk about a few heroes who are there amongst us. We have in the audience Jal Mahinda Puri, ex-GOC of 8 months, the architect of a victory over Tololing, .5140, and Tiger Hill, which helped, in his own words, turn the tide. The names of 18 Grenadiers, 2 Rajrif, 13 Jackrif, 18 Garhwal, the units that participated in the Daraz sector, are etched in a collective memory of all of us. We have amongst us Jal Y.K. Joshi, the commanding officer of 13 Jackrif that time, the unit which gave that byline actually, the Dil Mange More of Captain Vikram Batra. We have Air Marshal P.S. Ahluwalia, AOC Gwalior. That particular base had Mirages, which were subsequently modified at a very short time to deliver their arsenal on those icy pinnacles of Kargil. We have Brigadier Devendra Singh, ex-commander of 17th Infantry Brigade. The brigade was responsible for recapturing Batalik sector before the declaration of ceasefire, where actually Captain Manoj Pandey of my regiment, 11th Gurkha Rifles, earned his Paramveer Chakra. We also have amongst us Colonel Rajiv Kumar, ex-CEO of 18 Grenadiers. I was there with these officers and men of this particular unit on 3rd of July when they were celebrating the recapture of Tiger Hill a couple of days ago. We have several other distinguished veterans present here, Brigadier Umesh Singh Bawa and many more, who fought valiantly beyond the call of the duty during the war, maintaining the highest traditions of the Indian Armed Forces. We are also honored to have amongst us Veer Naris and mothers of some of those brave hearts of the Kargil war who made the supreme sacrifice in the line of duty. We are all honored by your presence here today, sir. Apart from recalling the memories of the war, I believe it's also important to look at the aftermath of the war and draw useful lessons for the future. We must not repeat the same mistake. The lessons learned by shedding blood must remain ingrained with the military. Other instruments of national power dealing with security and defense of the country must also take note of those lessons. Today, we have the hindsight to understand the war better. It's been 25 years since we fought the Pakistanis intruders on those icy heights. Accurate recording of history is important, and any misconceptions and myths that grow around them, those military events, must be discouraged. To learn lessons from this war, from this experience is important, but it's more important to learn the right lessons from this war. The importance of Kargil war extends beyond the immediate military outcomes. It was a conflict that underscored the need for a robust and responsive defense strategy. The Kargil conflict highlighted the significance of maintaining vigilance and preparedness for safeguarding our borders. It also emphasized the importance of public and international diplomacy. A mention of that was made by Barun, a strategy which was then used effectively, not only to neutralize the narratives being created by the inimical adversaries, but also to gain global popular support for that particular war. Kargil war was a limited war. It was the first limited war fought on this subcontinent, and it was fought under a nuclear overhang. Another mention was made of this. Both nations had demonstrated the nuclear weapon capability in 1988. Both these terms were new to India, to the Indian Armed Forces, and to the Indian subcontinent. There are lessons to be drawn from it. In my view, there will always be more than a casual connect between limited war, full-scale conflict, and nuclear deterrence. A somewhat similar kind of a scenario right now is being played in the conflict in Eastern Europe. Let me talk about intelligence. It is said that the price of freedom is eternal vigilance. It is said actually in the context of protecting democracy, but it's even relevant for the military. I'm not sure if we could have picked up those small tidbits of information that were available at that time to build the larger picture. We sometimes remain too focused on the immediate and easy tasks that we ignore the bigger picture. We miss the woods for the trees. Counterinsurgency operations in the Kashmir Valley was a challenge that made us forget to see what was happening beyond the great Himalayan range. Similarly, military leadership actually of today must have the ability to have a 360-degree kind of an outlook towards the threats and challenges that face the nation. A lot has been written about this war, about the lack of suboptimal jointmanship during this particular war. We have taken a bit long to promote jointness and jointmanship. This is one of the tasks actually interested to my appointment at the CDS. And actually, I'm happy to inform you all that we have moved beyond jointness, and we are actually working towards promoting a joint culture which is slightly distinct from the culture of individual service, a Navy, Army, or an Air Force culture. Integrating the three services into multiple domains is another success which we've been able to achieve in some manner. We are also trying to create joint structures for operations that would separate out force generation from force application. And that will be two distinct kind of fields. Another thing which we actually saw during the Kargil war was, the cognitive part of the war. It was the first war which brought the war actually into our bedrooms. It caught the nation's imagination as well as attention. It also brought out the importance of free and open media that existed on our side of the state, that is in India, and on the other side of the border where it was state-sponsored media. It made a big difference during the Kargil war, and it will make a bigger difference in the future wars. With constant battle of narratives attempting to shape perceptions across the world, there is no denying that information domain has emerged as another way to a key battle victories. Let me talk about the future warfare. We've spoken about the Kargil war and the lessons it has given to us. While we discuss and draw lessons from the past, we must look into the future, as no war in future is going to be fought as the last one. And Indian armed forces must be prepared for the same. War and warfare is evolving at a very, very rapid pace. Its character as well as nature is both changing very rapidly because of rapid transformation in technology and ongoing geopolitical flux. Both are following a very non-linear and unpredictable path. We can say that we are actually now on the cusp of a third revolution in military affairs, and the Indian Armed Forces must plan to enter this particular revolution with military affairs along with the advanced militaries of the world. The nature of military and non-military security challenges bring to fore the imperative need for the armed forces to be prepared for multi-domain and multi-spectrum challenges. There is an inescapable requirement of seamless integration across all domains: land, sea, air, space, information, and cyberspace, and infusion of interoperable systems among various branches of the armed forces. That, I think, will lay the basic foundation for us to be prepared for warfare of the future. Multiple initiatives are being taken by the armed forces to maintain an edge over our adversary. Improvements in our warfighting doctrines, strategy, and concepts as per perceived threats have been enunciated. Capability development to include infrastructure and robust operational logistics is being attempted in a very progressive kind of manner through ingenious means to build a future-ready armed forces. Multiple reorganization and restructuring initiatives are going on, enhancing the warfighting efficiency and effectiveness. Let me conclude by actually talking about the Kargil war once again. Pakistan always wanted to get even with us after the defeat in 1971. The preemptive occupation of Siachen Glacier by us in 1984 was another humiliation which Pakistan suffered. It launched Operation Kargil to redeem its operations in Kargil to redeem its honor, but clearly all its effort fell short of its aim. Like in past, it had overbid its hand. The proxy war that we witnessed today is a continuation of the same ideology and mindset that has not changed, and hence we must, as Oliver Cromwell had said, trust in God, but keep your powder dry. Kargil war, which has become synonymous to the resoluteness, selflessness, fierce courage, and determination of our armed forces, inspires and collectively exhorts all of us to focus towards the future threats and challenges. We must maintain a high degree of operational preparedness to face these kind of challenges. Towards the end, once again, I'd like to thank the organizers for organizing this Bharat Gallantry Award ceremony. My good wishes for this particular event. Thank you, and Jai Hind.
Thank you very much, sir, for that address. a very inspiring one indeed as we observe the 25th anniversary of the Kargil War and felicitate the heroes who helped India win that war. All right, let's now move on to our next segment, the presentation of the News9 Salute Kargil Honours. If I may request Mr. Barun Das, our MD and CEO, to join us on stage once again and join our chief guest, General Anil Chauhan, in presenting these honours. All right, let's get on with it. Ladies and gentlemen, the first News9 Salute Kargil honour is being conferred on Lieutenant General Mohinder Puri. Lieutenant General Puri was commissioned into the 5th Battalion of the 3rd Gorkha Rifles in June 1966. Under his command of the famous 8th Mountain Division, his formation spearheaded the Army's offensive in the Kargil sector and restored the sanctity of the line of control by capturing Tololing, Tiger Hill and Point 4875, which then became household names during the war. Ladies and gentlemen, Lieutenant General Mohinder Puri. Sir, for being here in our midst and gracing this occasion. The next Kargil honour is being conferred today on Lieutenant General Yogesh Kumar Joshi. Lieutenant General Joshi led the 13th Battalion of the JAK Rifles in Dras during the Kargil War. His battalion launched 4 attacks, the most successful of which was on Point 4875, which is now called Batra Top in honor of Captain Vikram Batra. The unit was decorated with 37 gallantry awards. The battalion was also conferred with the title of the bravest of the brave. Ladies and gentlemen, Lieutenant General Joshi. Sir. Our next Kargil honour recipient, ladies and gentlemen, is Air Marshal P.S. Ahluwalia. As the Air Officer commanding of Air Force Station Gwalior during the Kargil operations, Air Marshal Ahluwalia, then Air Commodore, undertook several trial runs on the Mirages, which were instrumental in the successful use of these aircraft in Kargil's mountainous terrain. I request Mr. Barun Das and the Chief of Defence Staff to present this honour to Air Marshal P.S. Ahluwalia. Thank you, sir. It is indeed an honor for us to have you in our midst today. The next Kargil honor is being conferred on Brigadier Devinder Singh. Brigadier Singh commanded the 70 Infantry Brigade in the Batalik sector during the Kargil War. He led the critical battle for Point 5203 and also the assaults on the Jabbar complex, one of the most difficult campaigns during the war. At one point of time, his 70 Infantry Brigade had 11 battalions under it against the usual 3. Brigadier Devinder Singh, if you could please have you on stage, sir. Thank you so much for joining us today, sir. Our next Kargil honor recipient, ladies and gentlemen, is Brigadier Umesh Bawa. Brigadier Bawa commanded 17 Jat during the Kargil War and was awarded the Veer Chakra for the operations. His unit was tasked with capturing the Pimple complex, part of Point 4875 in Mashko Valley. Could we please have on stage the recipient of this honor, Brigadier Umesh Bawa. Your presence, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, let's move on to our next category of honors. The next News9 Salute Kargil honor recipient is Colonel Rajiv Kumar. As the commanding officer of 18 Grenadiers, Colonel Rajiv Kumar saw action in the Mashko Valley in July 1999. The battalion was tasked with capturing Point 4875, part of the Pimple complex located at over 16,000 feet. Colonel Rajiv Kumar was there when 18 Grenadiers took Tiger Hill. The battalion was conferred with 52 honors, including a Paramveer Chakra, 2 Mahavir Chakra, 6 Veer Chakra, several Sena medals and commendation card of the Chief of the Army Staff. A big round of applause for Colonel Rajiv Kumar. Thank you, sir, for being in our midst today. The next Kargil honor recipient today is 5 Para Regiment. Ladies and gentlemen, 5 Para Regiment conducted high-altitude operations to reclaim Indian territory occupied by enemy forces during the Kargil War. The regiment was actively involved in the Batalik sector. It exhibited great courage and tenacity and was awarded the Chief of Army Staff Unit Citation. They fought one of the toughest operations during the Kargil War. May I invite on stage Brigadier Karyappa to receive the honor on behalf of 5 Para Regiment. Very much, Brigadier Karyappa, for being here amidst us. Ladies and gentlemen, the next Kargil honor is being conferred on Captain Yashika Tyagi. Captain Tyagi was the first female army officer to be posted in the high-altitude area of Leh in 1997 while serving in the logistics wing. In 1999, when she was called to serve in the Kargil war, she was pregnant with her second child. After the war, she was awarded the Kargil Star OP Vijay Medal for her service and became the first lady officer from the logistics wing of the Indian Army to be a part of the Kargil war. A big round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, for Captain Yashika Tyagi. Thank you, ma'am. It's a pleasure and an honor to have you in our midst. On that note, I would like to thank Mr. Barun Das for joining our chief guest here on stage. But General Chauhan, sir, we will request you to please stay on. And I will now request Mr. Hemant Sharma, whole-time director of the TV9 network, to join our chief guest here on stage to present the next set of Kargil honors. It is time now, ladies and gentlemen, to honor the Kargil heroes who made the ultimate sacrifice and laid down their lives while fighting for the country. The first Kargil honor in this category is being conferred on Major C.B. Dwivedi. Major Dwivedi's unit, the 315 Field Regiment, under the command of Colonel N.A. Subramanian, was the first artillery unit to be deployed in Dras in the initial phase of the Kargil War. The 315 Field Regiment was responsible for supporting multiple operations for other regiments that went on to capture Tololing, Point 5140, Blacktooth, Tiger Hill and Point 4875 in the Dras-Mashko Valley from the intruders. During one such operation, Major Dwivedi was at the gunner's position and firing at the enemies when a shell landed right next to him. His arm was hit, shrapnel entered his body, he was bleeding profusely, yet he continued firing and directing other guns under his command till his very last breath. Major Dwivedi was killed in action. His wife, Mrs. Bhavna Dwivedi, is here to receive the honor. Their daughter Neha is also here with us. If we could please have the ladies up on stage. Round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, for the family of Major Dwivedi, a true hero who laid down his life while fighting for the country. The Kargil honor in this category is also being conferred on Captain Nike Zakuo Kingaruse. Captain Kingaruse was a junior commander in the Rajputana Rifles and deployed in the Dras sector during the Kargil War. On the 28th of June 1999, Captain Kingaruse was assigned the task to evict Pakistani soldiers holding a machine gun post at Black Rock in the Dras sector and to capture the area. He killed 2 infiltrators with his rifle and eliminated another 2 enemies in a hand-to-hand combat, despite having been shot in the abdomen. Captain Kingaruse made the supreme sacrifice and went on to become the first and only recipient of Mahavir Chakra from the Army Service Corps. His brother, Vokatuli Kingaruse, is here with us. I request him to please come up on stage and accept this honor. the brother of Captain Kingaroose, a real hero who made the ultimate sacrifice in the line of duty. Our next set of honors are for some of the doyens of India's defense manufacturing industry. The first Kargil honor in this category is being conferred on Mr. Baba Kalyani, Chairman and Managing Director of Bharat Forge Limited. During the Kargil War, the army was forced to abort certain missions due to heavy casualties. It then decided to deploy Bofors guns to destroy Pakistani outposts at various vantage points. The strategy paid off, but the army realized it would soon run out of ammunition to feed the howitzers. Bharat Forge Group got the emergency order to make 1 lakh shells, and the Kalyani Group's flagship firm, Bharat Forge, took up this challenge. The automotive giant supplied more than 1 lakh shells in a short period of time, and this helped turn the tide in India's favor. And for this, we have presented this honor to Mr. Kalyani. So thank you very much for being here with us. The next recipient of News9 Salute Kargil honor is Mr. Sukharan Singh, CEO and MD of Tata Advanced Systems. I beg your pardon. May I please invite on stage Mr. Shailesh Dhamija, who is representing Tata Advanced Systems here. The aerospace and defense company of Tata Group, Tata Advanced Systems, is one of the largest defense and aerospace companies in the private sector in India. It undertakes multiple strategic projects for the Indian Armed Forces and defense development agencies. A big round of applause for Mr. Shailesh Dhamija, who is here on behalf of Tata Advanced Systems. And last but not the least, the News9 Kargil honor in this category is being conferred on Mr. Arun Ramchandani, Head of L&T Defense. Mr. Ramchandani has worked extensively on the design and development of critical equipment and new products for the defense and aerospace business segment. L&T's defense solutions encompass land-based weapon delivery systems, air defense and artillery systems, naval weapons launch systems with fire control systems, communication, avionics and missile systems. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Arun Ramchandani. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to the end of the presentation of News9 Kargil honors. But may I now request, sir, you will still need you on stage for just another few moments, sir. If I could now request General Jagatbir, editor of Salute magazine, to please join Mr. Hemant Sharma and our chief guest here on stage. And on that note, I will request our chief guest, General Anil Chauhan, to release the latest edition of Salute magazine, which is dedicated to the Kargil War and its heroes. May I request Mr. Barun Das also to join us on stage? Magazine dedicated to the Kargil War and our Kargil heroes. Thank you, General Jagatbir. Thank you, Mr. Hemant Sharma. Thank you, Mr. Barun Das. On that note, I'd like to express our heartfelt gratitude to our Chief Guest, General Anil Chauhan, for making the time to be with us here today to honor our Kargil heroes. Sir, thank you so much. It's been an honor to have you in our midst today. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, if we could have a huge round of applause for our Chief Guest, General Anil Chauhan. Thanks also to our viewers on News9 Live for tuning in. Here's an important programming note. You can watch this entire show on News9 Live and the world's first OTT news app, News9 Plus, on the 25th of July. Don't forget to tune in. Request all of you to please remain seated. Heartfelt thanks to General Anil Chauhan for joining us at this event. But ladies and gentlemen, please resume your seats. We have a lot more coming up for you in just a moment. As we said, this event is a commemoration of the 25th anniversary of the Kargil War, a tribute to the valor and dedication of the Indian Armed Forces that was on display during the 1999 war. It has been our attempt to felicitate those who ensured victory for India at the icy and inhospitable Kargil heights. The exceptional individuals, their families, and the support provided by the defense industry that enables our armed forces to protect Indian borders day and night and in the most challenging terrain. I promise you, we have a lot more coming up for you in just a moment, including some very stimulating conversations about how the Kargil War was won, the weaponry that helped us attain that big victory, and how India is preparing for the future. We have a series of stimulating conversations with experts and our war heroes coming up in just a moment. I would request all our guests once again to please take their seats. All right, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, let's move on to our next session, where we're going to take an in-depth look, as I just mentioned, at how India won the Kargil War in 1999, the weaponry that helped us attain victory, the lessons learned, and our future defense preparedness. Our first panel discussion today is on how Kargil was won. May I request the following guests to join us on stage. Our speakers for this session, ladies and gentlemen, are Air Marshal P.S. Ahluwalia, General Mohinder Puri, General Y.K. Joshi, and Brigadier Devinder Singh. And our moderator for this session is Sandeep Unithan. We will start the session momentarily, ladies and gentlemen. I would request all of you to take your seats as we wait for our panelists to join us here on stage. Our guests are here on stage, ladies and gentlemen. Let's warmly welcome our panelists, Air Marshal P.S. Ahluwalia, General Mohinder Puri, General Y.K. Joshi, and Brigadier Devender Singh. And the moderator for this session is my colleague Sandeep Unithan.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. You know, there's this very interesting trend in movies these days. There are a lot of superhero movies being made. In Hollywood, you have the Marvel Comics franchise. In India, you have Brahmastra and now Kalki, movie franchises about, a lot of them about imaginary superheroes. But if I told you there were thousands of Indian soldiers who climbed up mountains that were 15,000 feet high, near vertical mountains, with their bare hands carrying their rifles, went into battle against enemies that had been entrenched at these heights, in bunkers, heavily armed enemies with machine guns, grenade launchers that had the support of artillery behind them. You'd probably ask me that which movie was this? Which superhero movie are we talking about? It's not any superhero movie. This is what the Kargil war really was all about. It was Indian army soldiers, Indian armed forces, men and women, who fought like superheroes, unimaginable odds. There's practically no army in the world that would have fought this kind of conflict. But that's the Indian armed forces for you. Self before service. And I'm absolutely honored today to have with me on this panel some of the most exceptional men behind our victory 25 years ago. Gentlemen, welcome to the News9 Plus Salute Kargil Awards. I want to start by asking General Mohinder Puri this. General Puri, I want to take you back 25 years. May of 1999, you're the GOC of the 8th Mountain Division. What were the orders that were given to you that month? And how did you appreciate the situation? What were the odds that you were looking at?
Thank you, Sandeep, for getting us over here. Now, in May 99, my division was still in Sharifabad. We were still engaged heavily in counterinsurgency operations. Though we had got some information that some intrusions have taken place in the Kargil sector. Nevertheless, I was not tasked till the end of May to assume operational responsibility of Mashko and Dras sector by 1st June. So really, one of my brigades had moved up earlier as a reaction to, gradually when we were coming to know as to what is the type of intrusion and to reinforce the Dras and Mashko sectors. But the division, the main division with the other brigades came much later on the 1st of June. I was told about this sometimes in the third week of June. Actually, it so transpired that I think it was about 23rd or 24th of June that I got the first inclination that the division will be moving across Zojila to assume responsibility of Dras and Mashko. And then the chief was there in Srinagar, and there was a discussion going on whether we should employ 8th Division or 6th Division. But at the end, the discussion, I suppose, went in favor of 8th Division. And since we were the command reserve, it was very logical that 8th Division was put into operations. And then that's the time when I was on a flight with the chief and the defense minister to Matayan and Dras, when we stopped at Matayan, and there I was given the task of, assuming the operational responsibility of Dras and Mashko sectors. And later on, of course, on 1st June, we started our own battle drills and battle procedures to induct the division gradually across Zojila. So that's how it started.
But what are the odds that you were looking at? If you can just tell our viewers this.
Oh, yes. The odds were tremendous.
Fearsome were the odds.
The odds were tremendous. And Yogi sitting over here will be, since he was actually in command of a unit at that time, will be able to talk about this in a more detailed fashion. But the odds were very challenging. Like we had the terrain. We had the terrain which was perhaps the world's most inhospitable terrains, where we were going to launch our operations, and that also from somewhere about 10,000 feet to 18,000, 19,000 feet. Now that requires advanced stage of acclimatization, and though we were operating at about 6,000 to 7,000 feet in the valley, nevertheless when you get across Zojila, you're so overawed by the terrain and the climate and the, need to, and these heights that you need to again acclimatize and go through the advanced stages of acclimatization. So these were the immediate challenges. Then we didn't have the type of information which was required to launch a proper attack. 3 weeks had passed and we had no success. The country was not, all sorts of rumors were coming up as to what is happening in Kargil. So the intelligence was a very major challenge. But then by and by, when you get into the, swing of things, then everything falls into place, and gradually we built up our intelligence and were in a fairly accurate situation about the enemy's deployment to launch an operation on the 12th. But we had artillery, which was, like I think it was mentioned by Mr. Kalyani, it was a battle-winning factor. And of course, General Lakwenda was here. I wonder if he's still here. Okay, he was the one who was my artillery brigade commander. And he did a tremendous job in innovating the direct firing of the Bofors onto the...
Right, he's going to be in another session, but that thing about the odds and the kind of terrain that you were fighting against.
These are the major odds which I told you, the challenges which were facing.
Possibly the only such war that was fought.
Plus, we had only one road access. Yes. That is the national highway, which was going from Srinagar
NH1 Alpha.
And now it's NH1 Delta.
But I'm going to ask General Joshi this question as well. General Joshi, how's the Josh, sir?
Josh is always high.
So the 13 Jackrif, Jammu and Kashmir Rifles, as they say, sirf naam kafi hai. 2 Paramveer Chakras under your command. The battalion that you commanded is the only battalion of the Indian Army that won 2 Paramveer Chakras. One of them being Captain Vikram Batra, the late Captain Vikram Batra, and of course Rifleman Sanjay Singh. Tell us about the Josh of the soldiers that you commanded, that they went on from mountain peak to mountain peak like superheroes and casually mouthing these lines, Ye Dil Mange More. What drives soldiers, officers to perform these kind of tasks that no other army would actually undertake to
Yeah, so thank you, Sandeep. At the outset, I want to say that I consider myself extremely fortunate that I got the opportunity to command my battalion during Operation Vijay, when it was instrumental in turning the tide in Operation Vijay, having captured the two strategically most important features in the Dras and the Mashkawali subsector. That is point 5140, which is now known as Kargil in the Dras subsector on the Tolling Ridge, and point 4875 in the Mashkawali subsector, which is now known as Batra Top, after Vikram Batra, who laid down his life there. So initially talking about the challenges General Mandapuri mentioned, the first biggest challenge for us was, reorienting from what we were doing, counter-terrorist, counter-insurgency operations in J&K, and then, going into conventional attacks, and that also in super high altitude areas. And for me particularly, our battalion had completed its tenure, and the unit was moving to a peace station in a place called Shahjahanpur, close to Lucknow. And I, as a second in command, was already sitting in Shahjahanpur, with the advance party, waiting for the battalion to fetch up. But then Kargil happened. And overnight, we were recalled back. And for me, actually, from there onwards, Operation Vijay sort of swept me off my feet. 10th of June, we were airlifted from Chandigarh, brought to Srinagar, and 10th of June, we reached Gumri, just across the Ojala Pass. 11th of June, we were placed under command 56th Mountain Brigade to be reserved for the capture of Tololing. 12th of June, we moved to Dras. And 13th of June, we were sitting on top of Tololing. Amidst heavy artillery fire, amidst the MMG fire coming from point 510, which had not yet been captured. And as I was sitting on Tololing on the 13th night, trying to understand the situation, along with Su-18 Grenadiers, Colonel Kushal Thakur, I get a call from General Mandapuri on the radio set. As if surprises that I had got so far were not enough. And he told me that the CO has been taken ill, and you put on your pips and you are the commanding officer now. Such a huge responsibility in the middle of a war. So that, these are the kind of...
You're promoted in the field.
You're promoted and given the command of a battalion in the midst of a war. So you can imagine, my state of mind with the casualties of 18 grenadiers lying around me on top of Tololing. And then now, the huge responsibility on me, as a second in command, you are basically advising the commanding officer, and he has to take the call. But now, as a CO, you have to take the call, you have to make the plans, and on your orders, now the troops are going to lay down their lives.
And what a fantastic operation that was.
Yeah, so that is thanks
one after the other.
Thanks to the young officers. I always maintain that the credit for the victory in Kargil goes to the soldiers, the young officers, the JCOs, who were, upfront, ready to make the supreme sacrifice, without fear or favor.
Absolutely. Self before the service.
Service before self.
Service before self.
Yeah.
My mistake.
So in Dras, when we reached Dras, the situation that was in front of us,
yes.
on the 12th of June when I reached Dras, heavy artillery shelling going around, airburst in the air, machine gun fires from
shell splinters all around you.
All around you, huge
and for all of you who want to know what a shell splinter looks like, it's used so commonly in media, a shell splinter. It's not made of wood, it's not cardboard, it is solid steel. They weigh several kgs. You can see one of those shell splinters kept outside of the gate. This is the kind of odds that the Indian Army men fought against, and they captured all those peaks, as General Joshi just told us. But I want to go down south about 1,500 kilometers away from the peaks of Kargil, General Joshi, to a quiet place called Gwalior in the central Indian state of Madhya Pradesh, where you had then Commodore Padamjit Singh Ahluwalia, base commander, who had Tigers and battle axes under his command, 2 squadrons, absolutely frontline, cutting-edge Mirage 2000 fighter aircraft. And over the course of several weeks, the Indian Air Force launched 5,000 fighter sorties, 2,000 Hepter sorties, hundreds of Recce sorties, Operation Safed Sagar. Air Marshal Ahluwalia, tell us about the kind of improvisations that you brought in. I don't want to use the word jugaad, it's a pejorative. What are the kind of improvisations that you made to make your Tigers and battle axes ready for knocking off the intruders on the hilltops at Kargil?
I must thank the organizers for at least having one Air Force guy around. That's how much important it is to mention the Air Force in passing. But I can tell you one thing, and that is air power cannot win wars by itself, but neither can any war be won without air power. Thank you. And I must say that Kargil was a classic example of how air power can support the ground forces, the surface forces, the army in achieving their objectives. It was a very difficult situation for the Air Force in that no air war had taken place at these heights of 30,000 and plus, for you to be able to deliver your weapons. The Himalayas, the valleys, they run in a direction from northwest to southeast. And when the sun comes up on the east, the shadows that these mountains project, you're unable to see very much till they go up a certain angle. So what happened was the window of opportunity was very small, between about 8 o'clock to 11 o'clock every day. But very importantly, we wanted to get into battle as quick as possible. And we only got in on the 26th after the political clearance was given. And I think it's very unfortunate because between the 7th, 8th of May, 99, and the 26th, I'm afraid a lot of people would have lost their lives on the ground. Unfortunate, but when the Air Force got in, the situation actually changed very much when we started hitting not the targets which were very small targets which were sangars in the sense just boulders, and these guys were living in those little caves that you had. Very difficult to hit them. In fact, I would say impossible. It's like trying to spot a Maruti car at a distance of about 5 kilometers or so. Impossible. So we changed the tack. And then started hitting their logistics camps. Mantedalo, classic example. There must have been at least 150 to 200 soldiers over there, the Pakis. And I can't show it to you here, but I wish you had seen the pictures. Amazing. Then, 4388, Mashkunala, these were the places which actually made all the difference for the army to be able to carry out their offensive successfully. The Air Force was certainly not prepared to fight at those altitudes, just like the army wasn't, because it was presumed that the Kargil area, the Kargil sector, was the safest. It was established that the Pakis would never come in that sector. But as you don't expect them to come, they did. Just like all the planning is only as good as the first day, the first shot that is fired. But we had to innovate. We had to find solutions. We had to find solutions to be able to deliver from those altitudes. And we did not have the kind of precision weapons. But we used what is known as laser kits, fit them on 1,000-pounders, and obliterated. I think the classic example was Tiger Hill, the symbolic picture which everybody all over the world has seen. So what did we do? We put these kits, American kits, and these kits were used with the Israeli Lightning laser designator pod. The bomb was Indian. We also had the aircraft, the French Mirage 2000, and we had an Indian pilot. Now, to put all this together was not very easy. There was substantial differences in how the equipment was made, and it was made with specific purposes. Fortunately for us, we overcome that within a few days, and we utilized all the weapons that we had at our disposal, converted them into precision-guided weapons, and very successfully, at least the targets that we wanted to hit, we did hit. So all in all, I think it was great coordination between the Army and the Air Force. The Air Force definitely played its role. This was the first time in the history of modern air warfare that we had to fight at those altitudes, and successfully at that. We did lose a few aircraft initially, but that was to be expected because we had not been able to assess the threat very accurately, and we had something known as the Stinger missile. It's a shoulder-fired missile, very effective, but we learned our lesson, and we went above the bubble of the Stinger thereafter, and we did not lose anything subsequently.
Absolutely, and that was a spectacular offensive that the Air Force launched from the skies above, Operation Safed Sagar, as it was called so appropriately. But I want to bring in Brigadier Devinder Singh, who's been listening very patiently to his colleagues. Brigadier Singh, you know, General Malik had this to say about the Kargil war, that we'll fight with what we have. That's exactly what Air Marshal Ahluwalia also said, that you just kind of improvised on the fly and you created new capabilities. You were moved into Batalik. You were asked to take over that sector somewhere around the 8th of May, early days of the conflict. And you saw this prospect of our patrols. You saw the sight of our patrols being mauled by the intruders. We had no idea at that time what we were up against. And you marshaled those resources and you built up your brigade literally from scratch. I think you went with just one officer to take over the brigade. Tell us what the situation was like on the ground in those early days of the conflict before Air Marshal Ahluwalia and his Mirages entered the conflict.
70 Brigade was in the Kashmir Valley under General Mahendra Puri, and it had come up just a short while ago as a floating headquarters, as a reserve headquarters. We were leaving these battalions behind in the Kashmir Valley. So therefore, when the intrusion happened, the task was given that go and evict the intruders, troops will follow. So with 0 battalions, one had to go and look at a sector which was the largest intrusion, 25 kilometers by 12 kilometers. And thereafter, resources were made available, X3 Infantry Division, which really had no resources to spare. They were already under pressure in 121 Brigade. They were already, Siachen was on high priority, could not be, troops could not be sucked out. And the China front didn't have very much there to offer. So our problem was really lack of resources. Our problem was that the terrain difficulties were multiply a factor of about 1.5 to 2 times of Dras and Machko, because it was that much more remote, that much we were fighting 2 days ahead of the road on man-pack basis, and the troops were really coming in bits and pieces. But therefore, they say necessity is the mother of invention. We had to evolve a different methodology, and that methodology was we then, with whatever limited resources we had, what you said, General Malik said, we encircled the enemy to the extent possible and reached the line of control by 30th May. And thereafter, we tried to kind of encroach upon him. It created assailable flanks. And the moment we got resources, and for that a lot of effort went in, internal and external, in the sense that we had to push our weight around. But at the fag end of the war, we did get the resources. And the moment we got the resources, Batalik was cleared by 9th of July. Right, whereas the war ended on 26th July, Batalik was cleared by 9th of July, line of control reached. Karyappa here is the one who really asked for a fire on Save Our Souls. And the interesting incident I'll give you on that is that Pakistan panicked. Pakistan rushed the Rawalpindi Brigade, which is known as Coup Brigade 111. And 33 Frontier Force and 4 Frontier Force battalions were rushed there. And the moment they came in, because of this fire and the buffers fired, they lost 43 in one first firing and about 34 in a separate place. And this sent off really made them into shivers. Why? Because these were the first really Punjabi Musliman casualties. That means the real army got hit. Otherwise, they were the Northern Light Infantry and Pakistan Army, as per whatever one could read, they were not bothered about the NLI casualties. But the moment the Punjabi Musliman casualties hit, there were shivers, and you could make out. And then we caught 2 prisoners also. We managed to catch the maximum prisoners there. Their interrogation gave us a lot of information. And like I said, we completed our task well in time.
Absolutely.
By 9th of July.
And the rest is history. But General Puri, you know, we are sitting here 25 years later, after the war, Operation Vijay, mission accomplished. India has vacated the heights of Kargil. Pakistanis are on the back foot. Was there any time during the conflict that you thought that there was a possibility of a ceasefire being called and the Pakistanis actually holding on to their positions, thereby altering the line of control, which is what Pervez Musharraf wanted? Did you ever fear that it would actually come to that and therefore you had to run hell for leather?
That apprehension was there, and therefore we wanted to speed up the operations before the onset of snow. Because if the snow had come in and a ceasefire had been declared, then it would have been very difficult for us to, evict him in the next season, or the campaigning season. So this was a big worry. But I think this was also a term of reference which was given to us, that, the ceasefire would only, not a term of reference, it was an understanding, I think, which came informally through the chain of command, that till the Pakistanis are not pushed back, until the sanctity of the line of control is not restored, we were not going to accept a ceasefire. In fact, I think the army chief did mention that he was asked, कि अभी ceasefire करते हैं by the Prime Minister, but he said not till we regain the territory which has been intruded upon by the Pakistanis. So, but that fear was definitely there. So the speed and the ferocity of the operations, therefore, dictated that we finish it as fast as possible. But these terms of reference, like not crossing the line of control and, the ceasefire, are always lingering problems in your mind. That why is this term of reference with there of not crossing the line of control? I'm sure the Air Marshal would be able to speak more on this, because the Air Force was equally affected by this term of reference.
Right. Absolutely. I'm going to ask him that about the terms of references that tied the Indian Air Forces, one of their hands behind. But I want to ask General Joshi this question. General Joshi, if there is ever a book that you have to write, it has to be about India's two-front war, because fully aware of the fact that you commanded your battalion in Kargil, and as Northern Army Commander in 2020, you faced off against the Chinese. So you are literally the person to talk about India's two-front challenges that we have. I don't think any country in the world is faced off against two nuclear-armed, collusive neighbors like India has against Pakistan and China. But that's a discussion for another day. I want to ask you this, Colonel Joshi. Since you were on the ground in Kargil, you had the enemy. You knew in May that you were against the Pakistan army. And the Pakistan army, as we all know, is an army with a country, not the other way around as it is in India. India has an army, Pakistan is the army with a country. What is the aspect of the Pakistan military that you saw there that convinced you that the Indian army was completely different from the Pakistan military when it came to war fighting? I'm talking about ethics, honor, in war. War is a dirty business, but what is the aspect of the Indian military that you saw on the ground that convinced you that we're completely different from the Pakistan military? We may have had common origins, but we've come a long way since 1947.
So, two things stand out, what I saw in the Kargil war. The first is the Indian Army is officer-led. And the junior leadership, they did a tremendous job. Two of my company commanders, Vikram Batra, Jamwal, the less than 2 years service, and they are the ones who led their companies, to attack 5140, which was a very difficult attack, very steep slopes against, strong enemy sitting on top. So that was one thing. As far as the Pakistan army is concerned, there's always a crib that their officers, are never there with the troops in front.
So the officers were not there in the Kargil heights.
Would have been there. At least one, I recall, was there on point 4875, Captain Imtiaz of the artillery. We captured some of his documents. And he was the one who was sitting on point 4875, controlling the arty fire, in the area of Matayan, in the area of Draz, Mashko. And of course, he escaped. We only got his documents and some letters, etc. The second thing I want to talk about the Pak army is that, the entire infiltration that took place was the Pakistan regular army. But the stance that Pakistan and the Pakistan army maintained was that these are your mujahideen, this is your problem. Yeah. We have got nothing to do with this. Now, to maintain that stance, Pakistan as a nation, they stooped so low that they did not even accept the dead bodies, of their own soldiers who were there in uniform. We captured large number of, the I-card, pay books, documents, which clearly sort of clear evidence that it was the Pak army.
The regulars you were up against?
They were all regulars. And many of them were in uniform. So they did not accept the dead bodies of their own soldiers. No army in the world does this. So therefore, we got instructions from General Mandopuri, I was top of 4875, that we gave the Pakistani soldiers, the soldiers who were fighting the Indian army, a decent burial. We even got a Maulvi up from Station Grenadiers on top of 4875 and giving due respect to the religion they belong. A proper a burial was organized on 4875 for which, so that is the kind of, the huge difference between Pak Army and the Indian Army.
So for the Pakistan military, their soldiers are expendable assets,
Absolutely.
cannon fodder.
Absolutely.
And even the burial has to be conducted by the other side.
Absolutely. Third thing I want to talk about is the morale of the Pak Army. When we reached 0.5140 top, on top of that, the soldiers who were there, they put a rope behind that, an escape route to slither down. So when you are already planning your escape route, it talks volumes about your morale, and you're never going to fight there.
Right.
So there the difference lies.
We must talk at some point whether the generals in Rawalpindi have started, putting ropes behind GHQ to slither away from the people coming for them. One doesn't know when that day will come. But, the point that General Puri mentioned about fighting with one hand tied behind their backs, the Indian Air Force was asked to stay on our side of the line of control. And I've had the opportunity to speak with Air Marshal Ahluwalia several times in the past, where he said, we could see the Pakistani fighter jets across. We were picking them up on our radars, but we couldn't engage them. Marshal Ahluwalia, you're, as they say, you're one person equal to 10,000, which is why I think we just had you for the Indian Air Force. You could speak for the entire Indian Air Force. But tell us what it was like.
Surely we deserve more in numbers. But notwithstanding that,
But tell us, the point that you made, that you could not cross the LC. It's one thing on the ground where the positions are fairly demarcated, but in the air, how do you know where the LC is, where the IB is, where Pakistan begins, where it ends? How difficult was it for your fighter jets?
Well, before that, I'll just give you a little short on this. That the army, I think, got into action, Operation Vijay, on the 6th, 7th approximately of May, 99. The Air Force got into action on the 26th. There was a difference or a time lag, and this was because the political decision had not been taken to induct the Air Force till then. The reason being what they thought or what they were advised by the armed forces themselves, that if the Air Force gets in the third dimension, then it will be an all-out war, because the other side will also get in. So the best option was to use the Air Force, because we had to throw these intruders out, and we could only do it. I think it was a very strategic decision by the government at that time, that not to cross the LOC. But that's a decision, a political decision. But just like Uni said, that where is the line? You can't see a line there. It doesn't exist. Or it does, but it's not in your, line of sight. So we had to cross the line. But more importantly, the second order that was given was that don't cross it. But how do you attack these guys? Because they all had their Sangars and all their target systems were from the northern side. And we were attacking from the south. So you had to go, cross the line sometimes and then attack from the south. So all I can say is that we did not cross the line, but we did cross the line.
That's Marshal Ahluwalia for you. But thanks very much. I'm afraid we're completely out of time here, but thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us and discussing on this topic of how the war was won. I mean, this is something that we could talk on for several days, but you heard it from the heroes themselves, how the Kargil war was won. And you look no further. these are four of the four most crucial people who were there on the ground that day. Their stories will be told for hundreds of years from now. And as far as the Pakistani military is concerned, I don't think they still acknowledge the fact that they were actually in a war. But that's a story for another day. But thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us and sharing your stories with us. India fears nothing as long as you have men of this caliber leading our Indian forces. They stand guard while we sleep at night so that we might sleep safely at night. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you so much, Sandeep, and to all our guests for joining us here. May I now request Mr. Raktim Das, Chief Growth Officer of the TV9 Network, to please come up on stage and present mementos to our panelists. Thanks to all our panelists, as Sandeep rightly put it, our war heroes for joining us here, and thanks to you as well, Sandeep, for that stimulating conversation. Let me also take this opportunity to extend a special thanks to Ropin, our gifting partner at this special event. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that certainly was a very stimulating conversation. We wish we had more time to listen to our heroes and their first-hand accounts of exactly what happened at the icy Kargil Heights in 1999 and how these heroes, along with so many others, won that war for India. Well, a lot more to discuss here as we have these heroes and war veterans and doins from the defense manufacturing industry here in our midst. Therefore, ladies and gentlemen, in our next session, we're going to take an in-depth look at how artillery proved to be the game changer for the Indian Armed Forces during the Kargil War of 1999. I will request all of you to please remain seated. We're going to begin our next session momentarily. Our next session on artillery, the game changer, how it proved to be a winner for India's armed forces in the Kargil war during the crunch moments 25 years ago. May I request our panelists for this session to join us on stage. The speakers for this session are Mr. Arun Ramchandani, Head of L&T Defence, and Lieutenant General Arun Sahani from Tata Advanced Systems. And the moderator for this session is my colleague Aditya Raj Kaul. May I please request our panelists and our moderator to join us here on stage. welcome, sir. We are lucky to have with us for this panel discussion as well, Brigadier Devender Singh. Mr. Arun Ramchandani, Lieutenant General Arun Sahani and Brigadier Devender Singh will be joined here by my colleague Aditya Raj Kol to take you through the next session. Aditya, all yours.
Thank you very much, Neha. Ladies and gentlemen, today we are, of course, honoring and remembering all those brave hearts who sacrificed their life for the country during the Kargil war. But we also remember all those veterans who are part of us and who continue to inspire us. But as it is said that men are important and men play a significant role, but machine equally. And the artillery has been a game changer during the Kargil war, as has been stated, written, and spoken about ad nauseum. But today we have some experts. We have people who have been part of the Kargil war as gunners to speak about not just how it was during the Kargil war in 1999 against all challenges and odds and the kind of terrain that it was, but also what are the lessons that we learned during the Kargil war and even today, as we have witnessed over the last 2 years, the Russia-Ukraine war and the use of the artillery. Let me actually begin by going across to Brigadier Devender Singh. Sir, you know, artillery, it's often said, is the king of the battle, and infantry is the queen. And together, this king and queen have redefined the Kargil war for India. How significant did artillery play a role in such a treacherous, terrain? We saw Sandeep and the panelists speak about it in the first panel, the kind of challenges within a short span of time without acclimatization, the machines that were used. How did you really innovate to use artillery against all challenges?
At the outset, the two configurations, one of Dras Mashko sector and Patalik sector, were vastly different. The artillery is employed in a kind of a different manner, but because the major coverage, major this thing is with the Dras and Mashko sector, I'll first talk about that. In this sector, the objectives are very clear and visible from the deployment areas, almost. Right, from the roadhead, Mandarpuri is a witness. There, the objectives were clear, Tolling was visible, portions of Tiger Hill were visible, and therefore, a concept of direct fire could be resorted to. And Major General Lakhwinder, to his credit, along with General Mandarpuri, they confabulated, and then I believe they agreed to a methodology whereby direct fire was resorted to. Now, direct fire has got its own advantages, that the rate of fire can be faster, it can be more pinpoint, because you're seeing, like I'm seeing General Jagadveer standing there. If I want to aim at him, it's faster, rather than there's an intervening feature and then I try and reach on to him. It's a difficult task. So, and they got massive deployment, and we were very lucky that we had the Bofors gun with us. The Bofors gun had a higher rate of fire, it had a lethal shell, and therefore the...
Can I just make one request? I'm so sorry to interrupt. If you could just hold the mic closer to you.
Okay. So it was just coincidental that the RT was well equipped to deliver the lethality that it did. And this lethality played a very, very high contributory factor in pushing the infantry in and ensuring that they could deliver the results that, with their grit and determination, that they delivered. Patalik sector had a different configuration. Right from the moment you enter that area, the mountains start, and therefore you can't see the objective that you're going to hit. And the deployment depth was so little that you have to only fire in high angle. Now, high angle means those who are already there, gallantry, there's others, that the gun has to be normal conventional light field gun, Indian field gun. They have to be depressed, loaded, again elevated, and that kind of a manpower availability just doesn't exist after the third or the fourth day of the war, because you are, doing a great amount of, there's a dissipation of manpower. The 6-gun detachment is doing ammunition preparation, they are digging the gun pits, they are doing security duties, and meanwhile they are also firing. So really, after some time, the matrix becomes very difficult to there. But the buffers, with its ability to do automated firing, to do high-angle automated firing, etc., delivered the goods in both the sectors. And I'll let Arun take on for some other issues before I come in again.
Absolutely. In fact, I will go to General Sahani now. Sir, during the Kargil war, and you have said that the problem in our system is that too much focus is on the process of procurement, but no focus is at the end results. But, I would like you to elaborate on this in the context of both the Kargil war and what we are witnessing right now. There's been a paradigm shift. During the Kargil war, we perhaps saw, as Sandeep would perhaps correct me if I'm wrong, around 2 lakh or so that were fired completely. And today, during the Russia-Ukraine conflict, there is 60,000 to a lakh per day that we are witnessing. How does India tackle this? How does India become truly Atmanirbhar? The slogan is good, but how do we really reflect it down on ground?
Good evening. Firstly, let me compliment all those who were, I think, TV9 and Salute for having actually acknowledged the superlative work which was done by my colleagues while in the army. We were in service, but unfortunately, as it happened for me, I was sitting in the desert sector. We were supposed to be prepared in case the second front gets opened up, which never happened. But just to put it right, I was fortunate. I retired as a CNC, but I was commissioned into the gunners. And I think if there is a word and a line which signifies the contribution of the gunners to this war, is the fact that they were the unsung heroes of this particular conflict. Not that it takes away the credit from those who actually did the final assault. But just to give you an example, this is the only war in the world where literally the number of artillery regiments and the number of infantry battalions were the same, or nearly the same. There were 21 artillery regiments that participated. There were 22 infantry battalions that took part. Undoubtedly, there was a lot of activities that were done. And I think Barkha that actually encapsulated the action of the Bofors so beautifully during the war, which I'm sure everybody would recall, where she was sitting in a gun position and sort of giving that I'm standing here and doing this, and suddenly the Pakis picked it up and there was counter-bombardment fire, which came onto that gun position, and there were casualties subsequently. So what I would state is that I think the gunners played a fantastic role out in this war. They supported, and I think undoubtedly the Russia-Ukraine war brings it to light that destruction of the target and the support that is required before you actually have the physical assault is extremely critical. What you can do with destruction, which somehow was talked about by Air Marshal Ahluwalia as well, I think as far as integral and intrinsic to the army, it is the artillery which provides that kind of firepower and that kind of resource. And as we see time going on, today you've got about 340 odd infantry battalions, you've got about 280 artillery regiments. So I think the importance is extremely critical when you see the future warfare that happens. Coming on to the issue of Make in India, I think undoubtedly a few things that came out beautifully during that war. As Brigadier Devendra very correctly stated, there was a certain amount of innovation in the manner they engaged the targets. They carried out direct fire, utilizing the indirect mode, but they were able to see the target and were able to engage it well. There were enough officers, OP officers, who went in for assault, and where unfortunately the company commander got injured, they actually culminated and finished the operation. So I think the whole story of how intimately the infantry and the artillery combined to win this war is actually worth recording and is an example for future soldiers and professionals to look at. Coming on to the Make in India issue, I think undoubtedly Mr. Baba Kalyani did give the address. As I said, after I retired, my new re-attired avatar is where I'm advisor to the board and Tatas, who are the other people who are into gun manufacturing. So undoubtedly, as you're aware, the Kalyani Group manufactures the ammunition, which has been one of the critical things which are required for the army, and he talked about what happened. Whereas coming on to the gun systems and platforms, today we were the first two that came in, the Tatas and the Bharat Forge, which has started off the issue related to gun systems, whereas we had L&T and the Tatas who came in as far as the rocket systems were concerned. So India had been making a start slowly, but I think as you quoted something which I had written and stated sometime earlier, I think you're absolutely right. India is still captive of the process. We make the rules, we quote the rules and kick ourselves and not buy an equipment in time. I think this process of 5.5, 6 years down the line, which you keep wasting, is too complex. The armed forces have changed drastically. I mean, I've now been retired as a CNC 8 years back, and I can see the transition of how open the user has become in interfacing with the industry. But I think where it's losing out is when you talk about providing level playing fields. Today, when you're looking at technology which has to be nurtured and developed in India, hand-holding has to be done, and hand-holding doesn't require advice, because I think the technologists and the scientists and the experts are outstanding when they have to develop and take a system ahead. I think where it is required is to ensure that companies require to look at their return on investment. So if I put in money there, I want to see something coming out at the end of the buck. And I can't see it getting loaded if it is favored in favor of the OFB or the DRDO. In the final analysis, you're running, but they say, okay, sorry, red is the, well fought red, blue is the winner. I mean, that shouldn't happen. But that's what's happening in our Indian industry. There's a challenge to that. So how can you balance it? That's where I think the process needs to come in. The second thing is, there are 2 or 3 issues that you have to look at. This L1 capability is out here. Anybody who has to give you great technology is not going to give it to you for the cost of potatoes. Yeah? I mean, if you want technology, baby, you can pay for it. So, and if you want to give your soldiers the best, then please pay for it so that the soldiers are empowered to be able to execute. So when you take the statement of the chief talking about General Malik, that we'll fight with what we had, it didn't mean that we didn't have enough, but he said that there was more that we could have had, which should have come in because the processes and procedures did not come in. So let's not have processes and procedures holding captive. And I think the current government has been brilliant. I think post-Galwan, if we look at the emergency powers, where the system was short-circuited till the bureaucracy got a little upset and the financial guys got upset, you suddenly now have a bureaucratic and an IFA control on the future emergency powers that might come in. I think we need to start looking at the fact of 3 things. If I would leave it, the first, as far as the industry is concerned, please start specifying the op capability that you require from the equipment. If the user can give an op capability, the best minds will put across and give you the best method and solution that you want to get from them. Instead of telling them, please give me A, which fires B and does C. Because then you're actually stifling the technology that exists outside and the innovativeness that is there in the mind of the scientist. So I think that's where we need to sort of transit in our fire. The second issue is this L1 system has to go out. I mean, you have to have a dispassionate board which assesses the quality of the equipment that is being provided. Based on that, if there are pricing to be put up, well, so be it. But you please get the best for the armed forces and not the L1 system by lowest bidder. And that's not really the way to go about it. And I think the third issue that if I have to look at it, I think today there is a little bit of synergy required between the 3 services. And this I'm basing on my experience outside. If I want a loiter munition for the Air Force and I want a loiter munition for the Army, I want it for the Navy, I want one which goes 50 kilometers, the other want it to go 30 kilometers, one chap wants it for 5 kg, the other wants it for 4 kgs. That's what I'm saying. So that if technology exists and if there is a chap who can provide a particular equipment which meets the parameters of one of the services, then that should be taken, and then we should go ahead with the procurement by seeing what is the best technology base. If he can provide one for 5 kgs with 40 kilometers, I'm sure he can provide 4 kgs with 60 kilometers. So I don't think that's a major. But then we go through this process of having to lay out the RFP, get that whole product checked up, then you go through the trial phases, and then you go through this whole long long rigmarole. By then, technology is already outdated by the time you get it inducted. So I think if you look at these three issues today, the Make in India will happen. Great things have happened. From what I saw when I was in service to what I see today, 8 years down the line, undoubtedly. And if I look at the ecosystem, if there were 300 SMEs that function, today there are about 2,000 of them that are operating everywhere. And they're in niche and emerging technologies. And you've got the big 5 or 6 corporates who are into the game. So it's great to see, because they have the deep pockets, they're the ones who will be able to take it forward. And they'll give you the longevity. So I think if we do some changes, we're on the right path. We just need to keep vectoring at the correct stages so that you take the next leap forward. And that's where I would end.
Well, we are on the right path. It's great to know, but there's a lot yet to achieve. Let me take that forward to Mr. Ramchandani. In fact, about Make in India in itself, we've known your contribution in designing and developing critical equipment. And of course, you know how L&T has also been in partnership with the Government of India. How do you clearly see the road ahead, in particular when we talk about Atmanirbharta and Make in India? Less dependence on, you know, imports, more push towards domestic industry. At the same time, timely delivery as per the requirements of the Indian Army and cost effectiveness.
So I think the direction is very clear. The government has spelled out its intent, and the road to Atmanirbharta is chalked out. Now, of course, there are challenges. And, you know, if you look at it from the user perspective, they want the best equipment at the fastest time. And if you look at it from an industry perspective, we would like, you know, commitment of orders or continuity of orders, the ability to run our factories with some amount of continuity. There is, of course, a whole industrial ecosystem which needs to be created. You know, finally, weapon systems are complex equipment. They comprise of from a semiconductor chip to critical materials to different elements of technology, and we need to build that entire ecosystem if we want a reliable Make in India to operate. So if you ask me, there are a few ingredients that we have to invest into. Number one is R&D, that you know, we should be able to build our own products which are relevant to the environment in which we fight and relevant to our context, and we should be able to invest into that. And you know, world over, arms, ammunition, etc., have been built with the support of governments. So while we can bring industry forward and industry is willing to invest, etc., the government has to support R&D. And, you know, in previous budgets, they've talked about providing funding for deep tech R&D, etc. The scenario is changing. The use of modern technology into warfare is becoming more and more relevant. And this entire process needs to be supported. The second is of creating an industrial base. And that means to support a large number of small industries that can, you know, get into the ecosystem and provide a base for these kind of sustained supplies. And this requires a good amount of planning, because you can't set up a base where the demand keeps fluctuating. You know, it has to be sustainable. So this is something where we have to apply ourselves and see how this is created. The third is the procurement processes, which, like General Sani said, need to be speeded up. The whole process of L1, the whole process of, you know, taking 5 to 7 years to procure an equipment, all that needs to change if we need a sustainable industrial base. So I think these are some of the ingredients that we have to think through, we have to invest in, and the dividends will be high because, Not only is it a driver of self-reliance through the security perspective, but it generates economic activity. And I think that's also crucial for our nation, that we generate employment, we generate economic activity, we generate industrial growth, we generate R&D and IP within our country. And I think it's a virtuous cycle which needs to be propelled.
Brigadier Devendra, yet again, coming back to the Kargil war, you spoke about the use of the artillery, the Indian Army's decision to use the artillery firepower. But, Bofors in particular, the Bofors howitzers really played a critical role. We've seen Bofors in news in negative and positive light from the very beginning in the last few decades. But in particular, how did Bofors be a game changer during the Kargil war? And how did it tactically, change the situation completely on ground?
Let me admit in front of the audience that I commanded a Bofors unit, and I was a lucky person, I think unique in this, that the same regiment that I commanded, 307 Medium, was supporting me in the Batalic sector as the only Bofors unit there. And I had 2 other field units with me there. And I have no hesitation, repeated, not because that was my unit. And this unit went on to fire so many rounds, believe me, they fired above 20,000 rounds. In the end, they had exceeded the EFC values. All the complete equipment on return was sent mothballed or not mothballed, I mean condemned, and they had to get new equipment later on, right? Because that was the level of firing that they resorted to. But having seen Bofors performing in the field, vis-a-vis the field units were doing a tremendously good job. But then there were limitations of the equipment. You see, I stretched that point slightly, and that has to be analyzed. In a war, what happens is the manpower, war starts, 3rd day, 4th day, and the kind of war we have is a very intense operations. So 3rd, 4th day, the same manpower, which is there limited, they are handling, you are being dumped with 5 or 6 second lines of ammunition. Now, ammunition second line means you have to unload the trucks, they are brought up. Who has to do it? The same manpower has to do it. Then they have to put it somewhere inside. Then they have to open each ammunition pack. You are professionals, you realize how ammunition comes back. It takes manpower, right? You have to put the fuses on. So all that homework has to be done. Thereafter, the firing has to go on simultaneously. Similarly, is on the command post. So my experience is that if a gun system I'm saying, that means the command post, if they can work with 1/3 of the strength effectively over 24 hours, then I think that gun system needs to be acknowledged. Otherwise, in the war, it's not going to be a success, right there. And Bofors can work with 2 people, right? 2 people on the command post, one on handling this thing and one on handling the ammunition part. The gun can continue firing throughout the day. The balance force can continue doing the miscellaneous duties, right? So therefore, which was not the case with the field units. They had to, somehow scrape themselves together. So the amount of volume of firepower that Bofors units could produce was far, far more than what field units or the manual artillery guns could produce. So, but that is a decision for the government. It's not easy there. I've also been lucky that I've done also some ad hoc solutions to this gunning of the 130 to 155. I'm again firmly convinced that these are all fixed solutions. They'll not work. You have to have a system created to deliver high firepower and sustain it there as robust a system as the Bofors. So whatever may have been written as the, whatever the controversy was, but the gun system itself is invaluable. It has delivered, and that is really what made the difference in this war.
Absolutely, no doubts about that. General Sani, I want to now actually focus on a broader subject, moving a little away from the Kargil war towards the last 25 years, and in particular today in Jammu and Kashmir and Ladakh. Are we prepared? Something that Sandeep briefly reflected with General Joshi and asked him to write a book about it. A 2-front war challenge. How prepared are we for that? What is the situation right now? The CDS, sir, also mentioned briefly that we are moving beyond jointness. We are moving towards a joint culture. how significant and important is the operational implementation of the theatre commands when we speak about a two-front war challenge?
See, the capability of any armed forces is linked to two or three things. One is the capability and the capacity, which gets reflected in the kind of units that you have and how well you've equipped them. The second aspect is you're looking at organizational structures which synergize. To say that in India we never had a capability of integrating the three services to perform jointly, I think the 1971 war is a prime example where in Bangladesh, irrespective of whether we had the structures, we managed to come up. So I would state, and you saw the Army, the Air Force and the Navy jointly performed and delivered exactly what we wanted, the country wanted and what was demanded. So today, I think the media has created too much of a hype about how organizational structures are the final answer, which may have sort of missed the mind of those who are not uniformed people, was the fact about organization culture. See, today you must realize there are two, three things that change. The Indian Army and the Indian Navy functions on a decentralized command structure. What does that imply? That every man who's a leader at a different level of command in the hierarchical chain has been given a certain resource, which he uses that resource and has the capability to perform a particular task. The minute the task gets beyond the capability of the unit, you have a senior or a superior organization from a brigade to a division. He's been given certain resources and he executes the task. So in our case, it's a decentralized span of control, resources allocated to leaders at different levels. Whereas the Air Force is the functional command, and that's where the challenge, this whole story of integration has got stuck there. A functional command is that he requires, because that same resource where I want to climb up a hill will take me 3 hours, he has the capacity to engage 4 different targets spatially displaced by miles and kilometers. So his has to function at the top. And India is a country where our resources are limited. So tomorrow when you talk about theatre commands and you want to have separate identified resources to be given, because every commander is used to having some resources for executing his task. But if I'm dependent on somebody else, then that makes it that much more complex. So today when you're looking at theatre commands in India, the Indian Armed Forces is one aspect of integration. I think where we are losing out at the national level is not getting the paramilitary forces, not getting the intelligence services, part of these theatre command. Who matters today? If I'm sitting today with the ITBP and the CISF sitting at certain border outposts, what is his chain of command? He sees the thing happening outside. He's sustained by the army unit there. He speaks to his headquarters. The headquarters speaks to Delhi. Delhi speaks to MO. MO speaks to this one, and it goes to Army Commander Northern Command, who tells the co-commander, who tells the div commander. Where is he sitting? He's sitting next to each other. Are you getting my point? So today when you're talking about theatre commands, I think this whole story has to emanate from just synergizing the three services, which are great at getting together. We might fight in Delhi, but we are great best of friends when it comes to delivering on the ground. So I don't think we have to worry about. What you need to do is get our structures of the intelligence now integrated to this command. Where, and when you say command and control, they need to be serving under them. When you say operational control, you need operational control on the paramilitary forces deployed. Can you beat it? A country like ours, where you had 20 or 30 BSF battalions, 9 BSF battalions are under the op control of the Indian Army in J&K. That 20 or 40 battalion force today is 180 battalions. There still remain 9 battalions under op control. The rest don't come. The ITBP has grown 4 times over. So what I'm trying to say is that for a country where organizational structures are required, where you need synergy for the decision-making loop, please ensure that the wherewithal is all together. So the integration and the theatre commands should be now encompassed and gone out of the gambit and get in these paramilitary units and those who matter at the border as part of the structure. Then you will find the synergy that will happen for future warfare. So that's the first thing that was the issue that you wanted me to answer?
Yes.
Yeah, so I would say, please look at that. And today what is happening, I think the greatest challenge was to create that organization culture. And if it's happening, which I can see, we are sitting outside. As I said, one of our greatest strengths of the army is that our umbilical linkages remain with our units and with our friends and with our colleagues who are serving, who might be a different generation than my generation. But the issue is, we still have a relationship and a kinship which transcends space, time, and age. So we understand and feel the same kind of feeling which would be there for the soldiers. Maybe I have a little more liberty to speak publicly today, which I couldn't have done 8 years back. So I can voice what I thought needs to be said. You are the media, you need to resonate this voice. And I think tomorrow when we are looking at theatre commands, let's please have integration of the national resources. We say it's a national effort to fight the war. We've got the industry which is performing. We need the capacities of the top. So let the leadership also be empowered so that he can take decisions in time so that the application of force remains in the same place. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. We began with speaking about artillery being the game changer, and let's end on that. Mr. Ramchandani, I want to actually ask you about the modern warfare and the use of the artillery today, and how can artillery forces leverage advanced technologies like precision-guided munitions, autonomous systems, and network-centric warfare to enhance their effectiveness on the battlefield, while also mitigating the risks of collateral damage and civilian casualties in urban as well as complex environments?
So like you said, the environment is changing and the deployment of technology is very important. Artillery has been around and, it's been effective. Its effectiveness is not even challenged today. And the power of, shelling from a distance is just something that is so powerful in a war environment. That said, the artillery can be leveraged to a much greater extent with the precision guidance. So today, for example, the Pinaka rocket systems that we have the guided Pinakas, which enable you to enhance the range. Finally, artillery is an area weapon, and whatever accuracy you built into it, as the range increases, the deviation goes up. So the use of guided artillery is very relevant. The use of advanced ammunition, which gives you more range, is something which is happening. You talked about network centricity. It's all about battle space awareness. It's about awareness of where the enemy is, and the complete enhancement in surveillance systems, linking it up to command and control and being able to direct the artillery towards where the fire is required, are all things which are enabled by technology. So, gone are the days when you had to lay a gun and, it was a very skilled task of a gunner to lay a gun. Today you come, you press a button, you know where you are, you know where the target is, and it works. There is a ballistic computer which makes sure that the shell lands there. And all of these technologies need to be, deployed, and the industry is certainly looking at providing all of this to our armed forces.
General Sahni wants to have the last word. When he heard Pinaka, he wanted to say something.
I think one of the greatest lessons that came out for artillery there was the integration of the sensor and shooter. I think that's the criticality today. As future warfare develops itself, where the speed and action required is extremely getting into milliseconds, I think the sensor-shooter coordination and linkages needs to be there. Unfortunately, a lot of things that happen in organizations for organizational or management issues overtake operational capabilities. So somewhere down the line, we have to be a little careful that as longer ranges, precision war capability at 70, you're talking about 150 kilometers capability, you're talking about the Excalibur, which is going to come in. You've now got the Ramjet, which takes it to 150, 200 kilometers of a guided precision engagement. So the sensor-shooter linkages which existed in our organization structures need to be retained. And where they've got fractured, they need to be readdressed. And you will find that will be very good for both the organization as well as for the outcome of conflict. Thank you.
Well, on that note, thank you very much to General Sahni, Brigadier Devendra Singh, and Mr. Arun Ramchandani for joining us today on this very important day when we are honoring the Kargil, brave hearts. And at the same time, it reminds me of a conversation I had with General V.B. Malik a few weeks back, who said that without artillery, the consequences or perhaps the result of the Kargil war would have been very different. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us.
Thanks very much, gentlemen, for that insightful conversation. I would request all our panelists to stay back for just a moment as I invite Siddhant Sirohi of Ropin, our Go Green partner, to come up on stage and present mementos to our panelists. Much, gentlemen, for being here with us. Thank you to you as well, Aditya, for that insightful conversation. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is time now for us to get to our last session for the day. In this session, we're going to discuss the future after Kargil. It's about how India needs to prepare itself for the future. What are the lessons that were learned from the Kargil war 25 years ago? For this session, let me invite our panelists. We're going to be joined by Major General Ashwini Channan of Bharat Forge. We're going to have with us once again Lieutenant General Arun Sahni, an advisor with Tata Advanced Systems. And completing this panel will be Mr. Gary Singh, President of Iris Consulting. And our moderator for this session is Maroof Raza. Could I please request all the panelists and the moderator to come up on stage? Let's hear it, ladies and gentlemen, for our speakers, Major General Ashwini Channan, Lieutenant General Arun Sahni, Mr. Gary Singh. A warm welcome to all our panelists. And I would request Dr. Maroof Raza, the moderator. There he is. All yours.
Hi, good evening, everybody. One of the advantages of doing the last session is that, people are exhausted. They're not interested in you trying to recreate new concepts of warfare and conflict, and therefore, they want you to get it done with. I remember, I've been on the board of Springdale School for more than 20 years. And when my daughter was studying there, quite often I used to be asked to, preside over an event or a session. So I asked her in the car that what do you want me to do? She said, just keep it short. So I think I'm going to focus on that piece of advice. I think she's here somewhere also, so I'm going to stay with that words of wisdom. So what do we look at? We have this eminent panel made up of both knowledgeable people and sponsors, and therefore we are going to discuss the future trends after Kargil. One thing that happened at Kargil was suddenly a wake-up call to India that lots of our operational procedures, systems, weapon systems, how we worked around a battlefield scenario needed a rethink. General Chauhan, who was here, he mentioned that his own appointment is an outcome of the Kargil Review Committee's findings, and with no disrespect to the Kargil Review Committee, which was headed by Mr. K. Subramaniam, who is the father of the current foreign minister, there was already a need for a CDS much before Kargil happened. In fact, even the 1971 Indo-Pakistan-Bangladesh war clearly highlighted the need for a CDS. But again, the Army and Air Force rivalry kicked in, and some higher-ups put their foot down. It didn't happen. Finally, we have a CDS, and he's got a tough job to get everybody on the same discussion table and to agree on issues that are of concern to us. But there are certain issues, whether you have a problem with the theater command concept, whether you have a problem with who should be the next CDS, certain constants are there in modern warfare. And one of those constants that Kargil has highlighted, that the need for intelligence, survey, surveillance and reconnaissance systems, ISR, which will allow you to be able to be one step ahead of your adversary. And gathering of intelligence and the effective use of intelligence is that whole process. And in today's world, at least in India, I cannot think of somebody better placed than Captain Gurpavan Singh, better known as Gary Singh, president of IRIS, who has created a very successful venture in the form of IRIS as a company, which is constantly a step ahead of everybody in gathering and disseminating information and intelligence. Gary, can you give us briefly, what would your model, I mean, your model essentially is focused on the corporate sector. And I know you telling me the other day when we spoke, I said, would you like to speak on the panel like this? He said, sir, ये तो फौज की बातें हैं, मैं तो बड़ा junior अफसर था when I left the फौज and I went on to other things. But today you are creating models which I'm sure senior officers will be also quite happy to consider and implement. So explain to me, you know, the lateral movement between your model for the corporate sector and your model, how those terms of reference can apply for the armed forces in another kind of a surprise scenario like Kargil.
Thank you, sir. Let me first say thanks for conceptualizing the event today. That's your brainchild. And thanks to TV9 for getting up and saying, yes, we will ensure that this gets a wider publicity and all the support. Because what we are looking at, whether manufacturing and PPP model, I think somewhere or the other, defense also needs to be more with the society, rather than only at defense people sitting in defense event. I'm glad there are a lot of civilians who are here to acknowledge that our veterans and defense have done something great. So thank you for that. Surely with the luminaries on the stage and in the room and others, I am not even eligible to comment on that topic, but thanks for giving me opportunity to be here. Since I've got the liberty, I do want to pick some pieces which look disjointed, but they actually make the full picture. First of all, I do want to tell people, when we are talking about defense, let's not talk about equipment. Let's talk about technology. What everybody is surviving on today, the World Wide Web, WWW, was a defense technology. GPS, you don't move without it to the next destination. You want to check how many minutes it takes, was a defense technology. There are tons of things which are becoming popular, wider use, but they started off as defense technology. So that's the first piece. And when we are talking about Make in India, I do want, and General Sani already said R&D, a lot of other people said R&D. Let's talk about technology rather than just make in India. Also, you have to invent in India. You have to research in India. So that's one portion which I will strongly like to put forward. Second is, once this technology is available and And there, the war front for future is going to get into more technology. A lot of people say that when is the 4th World War, 3rd World War, 7th World War? We are in a war zone. We're living in economic war, which is becoming sustenance and survival of countries. We are living in information war. Data has become power. So when that situation is going on, you don't have to wait till war. You don't even know you are in war. China is able to shut down your systems without entering your country. What war are you waiting for? You can impact anything, anywhere in the world, sitting in one corner. So let's not wait for that war. And I think the preparation has to be very, very holistic. And even if you look at the physical situation of war front, we were always used to bombs and bullets at the border. But haven't we seen enough bombs outside our offices, outside our homes? We've been attacked. A lot of countries do get attacked. So even the defense technology is almost becoming also a homeland security technology, because the dangers which were there have also reached our doorsteps. So when we are talking about the joint culture, I want to take even 2 steps further. We have to secure our citizens, our critical assets, which are not only the government assets all the time, which we believe they are. Maybe the top IT companies are also your critical asset because they are linked to your economy, they're linked to your global reputation. So somewhere or the other, the integration has to go even wider than being thought of. And a lot of this Make in India is happening great. And some of the people who are in the room, not from, let's say, defense forces or uniforms, I do want to assure you one thing. One Make in India, which has happened in the tremendous manner and nobody is able to beat that technology of the Indians, are the Indian Jawans, Sainik, soldier. Nirmaljit Singh Sekhon went beyond what his aircraft could do. Pandey in Kargil went beyond his weapons could do. We have Brigadier Karyappa sitting here, Aditya, Captain Aditya of my unit. They demanded artillery to fire at their own grid location. So that is Make in India. So I want to assure whatever technology we have this Make in India Jawan, which will always ensure we are winner. Yes, the technology can as much help, will be great.
Well said, Gary, well said. I've always believed 2 things. One is, you cannot defeat a man who's unwilling to be defeated or who is ready to die to achieve his objective. One of the reasons why the Russians were not able to achieve that much success in Ukraine is because the Ukrainians were not willing to give up. And, in America, wargaming is done in scenarios. I was reading that 96 scenarios have been created for militaries across the world to see that how do you fight in darkness, how do you fight in daylight, how do you fight with less ammunition, more ammunition, how do you deal with surprise of all types, both at the level of politico-military level, or how do you deal with surprises that involve the use of civil population to achieve your purpose as force multipliers. But one of the things that Americans, cyber companies, IT companies were not able to build into the entire discourse was, how do you defeat an enemy which is not willing to give up? And that is where, when we went in to fight in Kargil, I had landed back to India from London. So I received a call from an eminent journalist, Rajdeep, to come for NDTV's evening news show. So I said, yeah, today it's not possible because I don't know what's happening. I don't want to go there and just waffle. So I rang up the MA to the Army Chief, Brigadier later Lieutenant General Ashok Kapoor. And I knew him in many ways from his days as an instructor in NDA. My father was posted there, to when he was G2 in Headquarter Mechanized Division, and then later, of course, as a general officer. And I said, Kisa, I need to understand. He says, Yaar, give me an hour, I'll get back to you. So in half an hour's time, he rang me, and he says, the chief wants to speak to you. And here was a lowly journalist from NDTV, and the chief wanting to speak to me. बाकी बहुत से interaction हुए हैं chiefs के साथ, but that was my first interaction with the army chief at that level in a strategic situation. So I drove up. Those days you could drive up into the army chief's house, and I was taught once by an Englishman when I was studying in England that wherever you walk in with the confidence as though you own that place. So the sentry asked me, कि साहब आप कौन हैं? मैंने कहा जनरल साहब से पूछ लेना मैं कौन हूँ. I knew he's not going to go to that level. So I went in and I was told by General Malik, oh Maruf, I believe you wanted to talk to me. Chief के साथ तो थोड़ा decorum maintain करना पड़ता है. So I said, yes, sir. So went inside, went into his lounge, and he told me whatever there was to know about Kargil. So I said, sir, there's a lot of information. Can I make notes? He says, yeah, but don't quote me on that. I said, sure. So General Malik, in the conversation I had with General Malik, one of the things I understood that there was a remark by a British Prime Minister, Clemenceau, who said war was too serious a business to be left to generals. I later wrote a piece in the Times of India after the 26/11 attacks in Mumbai. I said conflict and battling terrorists and enemy threats is too serious a business to be left to politicians. Because how can you trust, and I'm making this in a public forum, actually Meridian, I have a knack of saying things here which upsets the apple cart in the past also. For instance, there was a debate on Kashmir here, and I asked people, and there were all these heavy-duty guys from Kashmir, political parties, Sajjad Lone, Amitabh Mattu, and General Malik was there, General Huda was there. And I asked them, I said, can anybody tell me if there is a blueprint on what you're going to do with Kashmir if tomorrow there's complete peace and everyone's told, okay, now change the working environment there. And I remember Amitabh Mattu saying, there is no blueprint. And he was advisor to Mehbooba Mufti. So what I'm saying is that in Kargil, much as many political parties do chest thumping and say that Mr. Vajpayee had this magic wand by which he could bring about peace, actually nobody knew which way it's going to go and what kind of time frame it's going to take. So after General Malik briefed me, I went back to the TV studio and two famous anchors asked me this question. So Maruf, what's your analysis? I said, you're not fighting militants out there, yaar. You're fighting a full-fledged army. And you'll be lucky if it ends in a few months, but certainly it's going to be another Siachen Glacier type deployment. So it stunned the anchors so much that they forgot to say, we'll be back after a break. Anyway, after that, they told me in the break, he says, what are you saying? You completely contradicted what everybody else is saying. I said, yes, and I stand by it. So I came out of the discussion, and then General Ashok Mehta called me up and said to me, I say, you seem to have bloody well got it right. But who's briefed you? I said, I can't tell you on the phone. A cup of tea at the IIC is always going to be a welcome choice. But the point I'm trying to make is one of the most important things for future operations is to be able to have tools with you which will help you give an analysis of which way the operations are going to go. And if you don't know, you'll keep bombarding the enemy with whatever ammunition you have, like 155 mm Bofors and all that, and Baba Kalyani saved the day for the country, amongst others. But the fact of the matter is that that will be, and General Sani is best placed to educate us, that will be something that is taught in the military not to be done. Don't reinforce a failure, or to put it politely, don't reinforce a way which is not giving results. So what, sir, will you say could be, in short, the kind of systems that we need to aspire for in our country? I call ourselves an IT superpower. I call ourselves, and again people are going to, troll me on Twitter and whatever. I don't give a damn because I'm not on any social media panels. So I don't know who's going to hate me. But the fact of the matter is that what is it that we need to do to rise up from being the world's back office to a world's IT superpower, and use those skills to enhance our capability? Because I feel if you're not going to ensure the safety and security of your territorial sovereignty, you're no good. You can keep having all the economic clout you have, but nobody's going to come in and invest in your country if you're not safe. And both Kargil, of course, Kargil was there to challenge the LOC's sanctity, and it ended up getting smack on Pakistan's face, and the LOC got sanctified thanks to Clinton and the meeting of Nawaz Sharif of 4th of July. But even 2611 was basically to tell the world that this is not a safe country to invest in. So what kind of military tools we can look at having with IT capabilities, which is going to make India a safe destination, that intrusions by Chinese or Pakistanis notwithstanding, your basic capabilities and your infrastructure will remain strong if you have systems which will raise the alarm much before somebody goes running with a file to the PMO and say, "Ki sir, wo to phir andar aa gaye." Sir.
Maru, thank you very much. You actually throw a bouncer every time I come and sit on your shows anyway. So it's one more of those. But may I take it? I think I'll go by what, firstly, just a few statements. I think what Gary said, I think the human resource which India has is par excellence. And when I'm talking about that, today when you talk about technology, which you touched about, the global capability centers, which India has got, some 1,200 of them. We're talking about 4.6 billion people who are going to be employed by the time 2030 is there. So brain power and capability and capacity to understand is not there. What you require, and this is where I think great changes have already happened, as far as the national security structures are concerned. I must say, I mean, it's to the credit of India and to a great amount to the credit of the current political hierarchy for having changed the national security management structure that India has. United States of America took 70 years to crystallize and be what it is. We took 40 years. And I think the last 15 years have been absolutely remarkable, including with the last change that happened just about a few months back in the national security architecture. So the structures are very, very dynamically being monitored and are doing extremely well. Where we haven't been able to get in is that somewhere, which is the line where policymakers, government, and the user should be responsible for, that gets into a diminishing stage of gray. So if tomorrow I need technology, I need to be empowered to do it. I'll give an example. When I was the CNC in Jaipur and I had the PASCOM commander come in, when the Pacific commander came to call on me and we spent half a day chatting, he had a foreign diplomat sitting, I mean, he had a foreign service officer sitting with him, to make sure that inputs that were required to deal at that level need to go hand in hand. I think today in India, when you have the CDS, I think he needs to be empowered with the technological capabilities which exist in the human power, not within the services, but from within the country's large resources that we have today. So I think if we have a technology committee which advises on how you can crystallize this technology into space, and I'll give an example of that. We've just, through the USI and with ESA, we've just done a project the last about a year and a half, where I was again involved with it, is to utilize technology not for war gaming, but as a decision support tool. How do you get theater commanders tomorrow to be able to harness this great amount of information, synthesize it, make sense of it, and then be able to ensure it is gone? So we have set up a platform where I think ESA is now in the final stages of sort of putting out that beta version where we will go and relook at it. But we have set up an hypothetical theater that would come up, how this needs to be done. So you have a platform which gives you, in technology, the inputs, whether it is from sensors outside, whether it is from the human resource sensors, whether it is from multiple agencies across the world, whether it's from the 5 Eyes or the 6 Eyes, whichever organization you're part of. This input comes in here, gets synthesizes, and is provided to you in some kind of a format which makes it easier for you to be able to engage with it and interact with it. Today, when you're talking about satellite systems, you're talking about cognitive domain, you're talking about, you want systems which have neural systems. What is a neural system? I don't want the input from the satellite to come and tell me, please give me pictures of A, B, and C. I want to tell him what has changed along X, Y, and Z along my border, which is possible. India has the capacity. We need to let loosen the reins and let it run. You have a neural system like this, the commander sitting there tomorrow, say the Northern Army commander, he wants to know what's happened today, I've got some inputs from X, Y, and Z. He just makes that comment, he's got a ready-made answer coming. Technology can give you that. So I think what is happening is the capacity exists, the human resource exists, the resources exist. We somehow seem to be still stuck in certain amount of silos. We can't seem to synergize it across the system. And I think this is where the greatest strength is required today. And there are many ways to do about it. We can go about it, but I would say we have the resource, we have the capacity, we have the knowledge and the experiential capability. Today, all the startups, if you go today in Noida Sector 63, every second shed that you throw a stone at was an ex-DARPA boy who's running that factory. So out of the 130 guys who sat in DARPA year on year for a 3-year or a 5-year contract, well, I think there are only 30 or 40% who get retained. The rest move out after 5 years. All those guys are with residual knowledge back in India. So they need to be looked after and nurtured. So who's going to do it? So our processes and systems where technology has to be harnessed for the organization will have to be done with a certain set of technocrats, what we term. So you will have to have military experiential knowledge, intelligent people. You don't want a technology guy, but you want a guy who can translate this language into a manner that it can function. And I think we are capable, we have the capacity, and I think things are happening, but not happening fast enough. That's the tragedy. I think it's a slow process. So somewhere down the line, we need an impetus, and I think we should see things happening soon. Leave it on a note of optimism.
Okay, thanks. If I may be so, what should I say? That's the word I often use and I've forgotten it now. So, unashamed to admit that once I read something, it stays with me for ages, right? And during the Kargil conflict, I read a piece by Brigadier Gurmeet Kamal, Rahul Kamal's father. Very fine officer, but for army's internal reasons, he had to go home as a brigadier. But you know, the army is a mysterious organization. Those who are here, who've had connections with the uniform, will know that there are issues which senior officers take based on remarks or comments you've made which can undo many decades of hard work. But one of the things he wrote was one aerial disadvantage we had was we didn't have the A-10 aircraft's Thunderbolt, which could pinpointedly hit bunkers and sangars on the target. So what Air Marshal Ahluwalia, the great man, who found the time after I spoke to him to come for this event, and my interaction with him had started when he was air advisor to the air chief. And later we met once or twice when he was president of Delhi Gymkhana also. He said the big problem was at the speed with which the aircrafts moved. You know, you can barely see the ground accurately. How do you make out where the line of control runs? You think those hilltops have flags marked that this is the Indian part of the LOC and that is their Pakistani part of the LOC? And you are correlating the ground with the map which is on your thigh, and you're moving at twice the speed of sound, because an aircraft getting knocked off by anti-aircraft fire is more expensive than probably an RT battery getting written off, if not more. So the problem was the need for ammunition, the need for deployment and targeting systems which will apply to the various terrains that India has in place. Like General Sahni said, he was in Rajasthan. In Rajasthan, it's much easier, with no disrespect to the Air Force, for the Air Force to hit targets because you've got a lot of open area and your ammunition may not go and hit your own troops that easily. Here, you don't know who's going to be at the receiving end of the firing that you're doing. So how do you create ammunition? How do you create systems which are delivery systems? And how do you create assessment tools to tell you what is to be used in which kind of operational scenario? I believe, sir, you make ammunition. Do you?
Yes.
So can you explain?
Thank you very much for this question, and thank you for actually inviting me to be part of this panel. I have been in uniform, and I've actually joined Bharat Forge as a advisor, something similar to what General Sahni does. So I'll probably give a military perspective more than, from the production side. I'll be more comfortable in that space. So talking about Kargil, I will just go back and, narrate my little association with this war and thereafter, because that is what the topic is, Kargil and after. So, like all of us who were in uniform that time, in some capacity or the other, we were involved, we were in some sector doing our bit. And subsequent to that, I was very lucky that the moment the postings opened out, I came and I got posted in Army headquarters in the Perspective Planning Directorate, where we actually handled and did the staff work for the Subramaniam report most of the times. I was, of course, that time a half colonel, and I was the one who was generally entrusted with just carrying sealed suitcases here and there. But interestingly, from that point onwards, thereafter, we have first interacted when I became part of, the original few with Deepak Samanwar, General Deepak Samanwar, when we raised the Public Information Directorate. And that is the time probably we have, and a whole lot of other friends, I interacted with them. Subsequently, you see, as things went on, we moved ahead, and I repeatedly kept coming back into the same appointments and grew up till I raised the Army Design Bureau, which became the single point which started interacting. It's actually, for the Army, it was the first point from where we started opening out and reaching out to the entire industry and the academia at large, which has now become, the normal practice. But believe me, at that time, it was a little difficult to kind of break through the existing norms. So coming to the questions that you have raised, and the other discussions that have just ensued with both General Sani and Sir before him, Gary. So I wanted to just highlight 3, 4, 5 major points. The first one is, as far as, the development of artillery is concerned, specifically, since that was the question that you asked, we have reached a level today within this country where I think all the development as far as the artillery gun is concerned, I think we have plateaued, we have reached a level where all that could be possibly done inside the barrel has been done. Hereafter, technologies will take us to the next level where the propulsion will necessarily go outside the barrel. The longer that the shell is able to reach because of these kind of new technologies coming up, be it the electric gun, be it the ramjet propulsion, be it various other technology that are still nascent and developing. The longer you are able to throw a piece of military hardware like a shell, the smarter it has to be so that it is able to reach and do the designated work at the designated spot. Because the longer it goes, various external factors affect, and therefore it tends to stray away from the intended place of where it should reach. So necessarily with this longer ranges, we need to smarten up this ammunition so that it is able to reach with precision and accuracy at a particular place. So I think all the development now is happening in this direction. And to that extent, we and other, the big 5 understand that this is the next way to go. And a lot of time, effort, and money is being deployed towards this end. Coming back, as I speak, there are 3 lines of effort within Bharat Forge itself, which are happening within this country to build, the next level of precision-guided ammunitions, which will be purely indigenous, but that is some distance away. I just want to briefly touch on the last question also, because I again dealt with this very closely, and I will probably talk from a very low level of a practitioner. Sir, when we talk of, this India being a IT hub and the, the kind of prowess that we have, there is a major problem in trying to import this into our system. Aspirations, fine. I was actually, we started something called the Defense AI Committee, where one had a big exposure. And what I found, until date, actually, we've not been able to solve this is, firstly, our data, our legacy data, is actually needs to be curated because it's lying in very, very different formats, and it's not really immediately compatible to automation or to pick up and use by AI tools. The second major problem is that the entire AI system runs on data, and it keeps improving as more and more data is fed into it. Unfortunately, the confidentiality of data in the services is a major barrier. We are not able to provide proper data to people who can, build platforms. So I think till the time we actually create this kind of expertise in-house, and believe you me, creating this expertise in-house is difficult because these are all expertise that are run on large-scale commercial applications. So it is only people, who we will have to just take a thin slice out of the larger pie. Only then it becomes commercially viable enterprise. Otherwise, we will have to invest hours and hours of manpower, or we will continue to, just do a little bit of nibbling here, a little bit of some system there, etc. That is, what really comes in the way. And I really wish there could be a solution. Probably if we all put our minds to it, we will probably come somewhere.
Thanks. Oh, sir, you love to have the last words.
No, not definitely not last word. I quite liked what he said. I just wanted to leave out that today, whichever, as far as AI is concerned, when you're looking at it, I think the answer today, though I hate to copy the Americans, the future command that the Americans have set up, where the committee and the team that operates both of the user and the technologist who's there as an advisor has the power to be able to execute whatever he wants to do. So to give a power, and when you say power is the accountability, yes, but along with it, the authority to be able to buy that. I want a particular equipment to now have an AI tool which can facilitate and automate it, then I should be able to give the order there and see it happening tomorrow. And I'll give you, the process exists. Our national range that was done at Balasore, the gentleman who was posted as the technology head in UK when I was doing a course, this is about 35 years back, had been given the financial powers of up to 10 CR, and those days was like asking for the moon, that he could order anything from the world. So I think today, if we do make a body like that today, a nodal field formation or a unit with the necessary wherewithal, with the capacity and the finances, where you don't ask for return on investment and say ki isko based hua ki nahi, you will find that you'll be able to take it ahead.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. I'd love this discussion to go on for another half an hour, but time's of a constraint because this hall has to be cleared by us in the next 15 minutes. And since all three of you are our sponsors, and if you wish to sponsor another couple of hours of the conference, then we can khincho this, right? So, or I'll leave that for another day because I have another conference in mind where the role of the gunners will have to be explored in greater detail by Salute and the various organizations that you all represent, Kalyani Group and the Tata Group, both competing with each other to take credit for the A tags. It depends on who. So there's, correct, sir. That's the right attitude to have. But in any case, thank you very much. I need to, I told Geeta that before you warn me, I'll walk off the stage. So therefore, I'm ready to wrap it up unless they tell me encore and give us another half an hour more. So वो बाकी लोग रोने लगेंगे यहाँ पे कि सर अब मत पनिश करो हमको और. So thank you very much for your brilliance, and I think I've picked up some very important nuggets of information, and I'm going to go back to read some more on it to clear my mind that where do we talk of fifth generation weapon systems, but let's look at fifth generation warfare and how do we prepare for that. So thank you very much for everything, and thanks to all of you for listening in.
Thank you so much, gentlemen. I will request you to stay on with us for just another moment as I call upon stage my colleague Sandeep Unithan to present mementos to our panelists and our moderator for this session. It's been an absolute pleasure sitting here and listening to your insights on a very important subject as we observe 25 years of the Kargil war. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we've come to the end of News9 Salute Kargil Honours 2024. It's been an absolute pleasure and an honour to have your company today. Thank you for your time and presence. We greatly appreciate it. And I'd like to request all our guests to join us for high tea now.
Thank you, Neha. Our chief guest, General Anil Chauhan, CDS, distinguished guest, ladies and gentlemen, a very good afternoon and a warm welcome. Either I will come back after hoisting the tricolor, or I'll come back wrapped in it, but I'll be back for sure. These famous words symbolize a sense of confidence and security as India now celebrates the 25th year of Kargil war victory. It was Captain Vikram Batra who uttered these words to his friends at the onset of the war. Captain Batra was one of the 527 national heroes whose ultimate sacrifice made the Kargil war victory possible. A peacenik and a statesman at heart,